The movie Antebellum was actually released in 2020. It stars Janelle Monae, always on her A game. It's a story that brings slavery into our current time. Antebellum is written and directed by Gerard and Christopher Renz, and they're here joining me today to talk about the film and how it plays into what we are seeing in America right now. Say hello to Gerard and Christopher. Happy New Year, everyone. Yes, we made it to 2021. So glad you're here and joining us today on Hollywood Live, and we've got quite the show for you. The movie, Antebellum, was actually, it opened in September of 2020, but it could not be more poignant than today. The co-directors and writers are joining me. They're here right now. Say hello to Gerard Bush and Christopher Renz. Hi, guys. How are you?
Hi, how are you? Thanks for having us.
Oh, absolutely. Thank you for being here, first of all. Everybody's okay. You're doing good.
Look, we're incredibly blessed to, be healthy and have a roof over our heads and all this tumult that the country's experiencing. And so we're really grateful.
Well, I got to tell you something. This movie is so incredible. I'm just going to give people a really quick synopsis. It's an author played by the incredible Janelle Monae. She's like, really that girl out on a book tour, and all of a sudden she's kidnapped and seems to go into a time capsule that goes back to slavery. That's all I'll say about that. Mm-hmm. How did you two, first of all, what a heck of a way, like I said, to start your directorial debut, which you both co-directed, but the story, you wrote the story as well. Where did this come from? Where'd you come up with this?
It's funny. We write everything that we direct, and we spent the last 12 years together. Well, prior to making the movie, it had been almost 10 years honing our collective voice and skill to make this movie. But we never intended that our first film would be about American slavery. But shortly after my dad suddenly died, I had this nightmare where this woman, Eden, seemed so desperate for help that she was communicating with me across dimensions. Wow. And so it felt really ancestral, and I was devastated that I couldn't reach her. That's how real it felt. And I was just as shocked when I saw some of the things, when I realized what was really happening in the dream is how it was communicated, what I communicated to see the next day. And then we wrote the short story with the intention that it would live as a short story. And it wasn't until we connected with our now producer, Zev Foreman, and he persuaded us to make a film out of it. And then that's when we wrote the script. Yeah.
It's hard to watch, but it sticks with you. I thought about this. I didn't actually sleep very well after I watched this last night, and I waited all this time. I said, let me just wait to watch this. And then it turns out I watched it after the insurrection last week. Okay. So, thinking about that, let me just say this. Let me tell you a quick story about me. Mm-hmm. In 2016, I was at a wedding in Savannah, Georgia, and the last weekend in October, a nattily just dressed white gentleman came up to me and said, the Civil War isn't over. It's only halftime. And I'm like, really? I thought it ended 150 years ago. He said, oh, no. Civil War is not over. It's only halftime. 2 weeks later, Donald Trump was elected. So, are we about to see another civil war in this country? Is that what this is?
Well, look, the word antebellum is defined by the period before a civil war, specifically the period before the American Civil War. And the question that the audience has to ask themselves, in what we're saying in Antebellum, are we talking about America's Civil War of the past, or a civil war that we're on the brink of right now? And so we've always known, just in the work that we've been doing over the past decade, as it relates to social justice and social inequity, and police brutality, as it relates to Black and brown people in America. It's not that the movie is prescient or prophetic as far as we're concerned, because all indicators pointed that we were headed in this direction and that we were going to be in precisely the place that we're in right now, because we have been in the trenches doing the work. We knew we were headed in this direction.
Right.
It's everyone else that's been, sleepwalking and seduced by the idea that America is not what America is. We heard just last night someone saying on CNN, America is better than this. No, we're not.
No, we're not.
We're not. When were we better than this? It's the idea of what we want America to be. We are that's the greatest hope that we have. I think we have to decide whether that is tantamount to waiting for Godot, or if it is something that's actually tangible. It's something that we can achieve. We obviously are more optimistic. Otherwise, we wouldn't make the movies or tell the stories that we're telling. We have to believe that there is the opportunity, if we can just get to a place to confront the truth, no matter how uncomfortable it may be. That's the only way that you can heal something, is if you can get right to the root of it. But for now, what we've been doing, I think when I watched just like everybody else did with Christopher. I just wanted to see Ted Cruz and Josh Hawley object to an election by the people. I wanted to see it for myself without having any idea that what was about to happen was about to happen. And when I watched it in slow motion horror, it was in many ways, I have to say that it felt worse than 9/11.
It is worse than 9/11. It is worse than 9/11. Plus, we're in a pandemic, which is all part of the same story, because that was never handled correctly. So now we've got, we're gonna reach 500,000 people dead. I'm so sure before this is over.
Oh, absolutely.
Yeah,
and when you saw the images of the black men cleaning the Capitol after this was over, such metaphor for how black people continue to have to clean up after white America's mess.
Yeah. Christopher, you're being a little silent there. But the combination, it's the two, you've got a black man and a white man, and you've just put together this most incredible, frightening, poignant story about where we are right now. How, if the two of you could come together and do this, what is it that white America needs to do right now to deal with the white American or the white supremacist issue? Because that's really what this comes down to. And that's really what your story's about.
It is. Thank you about the story. We were just talking to someone, and they said the American dream is to stay asleep. And I think that's what white people have been doing in America. And now we're at this point where you cannot stay asleep, and you're shaken awake. And that was really part of the inspiration in making the film, was to shake people awake and show them something that would disturb them, because it's the truth, and have them look directly at it. And I think that, that's what we do as our partnership. That's what we've done for the last 12 years. This is really the first time, our first feature film to do it on a larger stage, and something that we're going to continue to do.
I also would like to add that I think that we're doing ourselves no favors as a society that continues to coddle white America and protect them from their amnesia. They need to feel and believe in their own nobility, their faux nobility. They need to believe in the purity of who they are. So much, in fact, that Hollywood for years continued to reflect back to them exactly what they needed to see, whether that's Gone with the Wind or, I mean, it's an image that when you see what white America, a faction, a part, a virulent, loud, and incredibly dangerous element of white America is, it can be shocking to the system because we've all been co-conspirators in protecting them from the truth of what and who America is. Black people, we've always known exactly what this is, right? We've always known. And what we learned is it doesn't matter if we toe the line or if we don't.
Right.
If we toe the line, it's basically like saying, I'm going to allow your life. I'm going to allow these things to, you can have whatever's left over. This will be fine as long as you go along with the lie. Kaepernick found out as soon as he said, I can't go along with this lie, I'm not going to do that. And he's one of the most talented quarterbacks in the NFL, and they quickly extinguished him.
And they have not brought him back, and they're not going to.
And ever, right?
Okay.
Ever. So this is, you know, we were watching the Tiger Woods documentary the other day. That was brilliant, the docuseries. And there's this scene where he's playing at the Masters, and I had no idea that the origin of the Masters in Augusta is exactly what it sounds like, the Masters. And this young black boy was playing at the Masters. I mean, the vestiges of the original sin of this country are everywhere. They are omnipresent. I carry them in my surname. I'm reminded constantly of the vestiges of this, of the original sin of this country. And when what happened on the Capitol, what we're trying to say with Antebellum and what we were trying to say with, and what we continue to try to say with the film, is that all of this is plausible. It is all frighteningly plausible.
It's the most disturbing thing about the film is its plausibility, especially after seeing, you know, what we saw a few days ago. Unfortunately, it wouldn't be shocking to see the story of Antebellum on CNN.
Next week.
Yeah. No, you're right. We don't even know if that's not happening right now. That's what hit me. That's what hit me. Especially, I had to think back to my situation in Savannah 4 years ago, and he was so certain that the Civil War was not over. And I'm like, okay, you know what? Here we are. And then when I watched Antebellum, and I'm trying to go around all this so people, I'm not giving the plot away because it's brilliantly done. Okay. And as frightening as it is, there's that whole twist that comes, you know, that you kind of see coming. But there's so many little nuances, you know, that you guys have put in this movie that you're all the time watching. You say, oh, okay, what? But it comes down to white privilege. It comes down to white privilege, and the difference between Christopher, you having the white privilege. I don't know what your background is, and Gerard, you not. So, you know, in doing this, how did that come into play? I mean, you two have been, your partners, you've been doing all this, but there is that reality, and that's what this is also all about.
You know, I want us both to talk about this because I think it's really important. I am Black and I am privileged. And I am Black and I am privileged because I was raised by extraordinary Black parents and an extraordinary Black grandmother who taught me my value and my worth from day one. And so I always walked around, in the words of our mentor, the legendary Harry Belafonte, as if I had gold mines in my backyard.
Yeah, babe.
Always. So I think the understanding of Christopher observing me and my family, because our families are a blended family now, but watching us, and my mom is you know, she's more Dominique Devereaux than she is Diane Carroll, but they bleed together. But anyway, you know, it's this idea of having the audacity to stand in your power as a Black person, to have the audacity to say, I am not going to participate as a co-conspirator in my own dehumanization. I will not. I'm actually, this is who I am, and I stand in this. And I think just in Christopher being a witness to that in and of itself over the past decade has been really helpful in how we write and co-create these things together. That's what I'll say about my part.
No, I mean, I've experienced so much over the last 12 years being in this partnership that I never would have had access to. And so I feel like it's partially my responsibility to have other folks understand as well, and explaining to people, even sometimes family members who don't understand what we mean when we say white privilege. They say, I'm not privileged, I'm not rich, I'm not this, I'm not that. What do you? I said, it's incredibly basic. And I think what happened in the Capitol last week is a perfect way to explain that. And that look at the response to the BLM protesters and the National Guard and the rows and rows and rows of protection, but white people can just go right into the Capitol.
Yeah, armed.
Not be arrested coming out of it either. Armed with zip ties, kill a police officer, and those same people are no longer saying Blue Lives Matter. That's not their talking point. But it's really, I think that what happened was horrible, but it was the clearest display of white privilege.
Yeah.
And it was also their display of white privilege on the way to fight for their white currency, understanding that for them, the poor ones, they always felt like, well, the one thing I have before Barack Obama, it was my whiteness. That's where they said, well, what I can't give you in money, that's right, I'm going to give you in color. And we have to be Black so they can be white. And when that becomes blurred, when those lines get blurred and we are in places and stations and things that are supposed to belong to them and their identity only, well, then that means that their currency is questioned, that their currency has been devalued. So they were on the way, to Christopher's point, the white privilege was demonstrated in stunning fashion. But the white privilege that was demonstrated in stunning fashion was because they were en route to fight, to reestablish the value of the currency of what it is to be white in America. And that's what it is all about.
I almost don't need to say anything after that, but I do have to add, because there's a line in the film, certain things in the film stuck out to me. And this was one of the lines that came from, I'll just call her the female slave owner type. And she says to Janelle, you're not better than me. You're no better than me. And it all comes down to that, like you just said, the idea that a Black person could have the audacity to be whatever in their mind they think is better than them. Black people are so forgiving. We don't even think of it like that.
I'm not forgiving, but like, you know,
but I'm just saying in general, you know what I'm talking about.
Yeah, we are. But here's the thing, and it would take a trained clinical psychologist to really explore this. But from my armchair quarterback psychology, I think that we must investigate the inferiority complex that these white people feel.
Yeah.
And what that makes them act out, you know, in such a way that makes them so violent. You know, we saw on display, like I'm very interested in the collective psychopathy of an entire society of people and how quickly it can metastasize. You saw it in the antebellum South. You saw it in the Jim Crow South. You saw it in Nazi Germany. And you're seeing it again in Trump America. And we had better, I think so many of us that are in our bubbles, when we were watching what happened on the Capitol, which, by the way, that is preamble to something much bigger. But when
they've already predicted, they've already said that. They're planning it, and the FBI doesn't seem that they can even do anything about it the way they're saying it.
But you know, Trump methodically gutted all of our protections.
Yes.
So we're out here naked with no protection. All of that happened at the Capitol was an inside job. James Clyburn said, I have a hidden office that nobody should know about. They knew specifically how to get there. Yes. And they were looking for me.
With no National Guard.
With no National Guard. And can you imagine, Nancy Pelosi could have been murdered. AOC could have been murdered. All those people, Mike Pence.
I was going to say they had the noose ready for Mike Pence. He ought to think about that, okay?
If I'm Mike Pence, I'm saying, you know what? Let me get this Secret Service and go ahead and be the president and like get the and at least correct the record. But look, I didn't think that Antebellum could have been any more relevant than when it came out to start with in September. But now that this has happened, we have come full circle. The movie continues, and that's what makes me believe that it was seeded ancestrally, because it continues to bloom in such a way that it becomes increasingly relevant. It says, I was seeded to you because I knew that you would make sure that this happened and this would get out. And we have, here is what it is. It is a cautionary tale that is happening in real time. And we're seeing the first bands of a Category 5 headed toward the whole of America. And it's not too late, but it's almost.
But it's, boy, we're close. We're close to it being, and I'll tell you why. My neighbor right across the street, who's a brilliant woman, she's white, she said to me after George Floyd, she said, you know, America is never going to change until white people can look at black people and see themselves.
Ooh, wow, that's profound.
It is profound, and it's true.
But you know, it's funny that you say that, because we as black people, like as a black kid, I always had to see myself in white characters that were superheroes or whatever, because there wasn't anything for us. Mm-hmm. You always had to imagine yourself. But when I talked to my mom, she grew up in East Texas at a time where everything was segregated. And she's like, I didn't have anything to do with those people. We didn't see them. They were, I mean, when you saw them, it was not that. But that's a fascinating, I'm going to never forget what your neighbor said. That's
I won't either.
Very true, yeah.
Because it's true. And then there are so many levels of that when you think about it. So that's a good theme for another movie. How do white people finally look at somebody that their skin is a different color and be able to see themselves, the humanity, the you know, the hurt, the pain, whatever, the happiness, the joy. That's where we've got to get to in this country. Mm-hmm. Some kind of way. Children do it. It's interesting. Children can do this until somebody tells them something different.
Yeah.
So it is. It's just true. So I've been thinking about that a lot. And then, you know, all of these movies that are coming out, and it's kind of like, okay, what do we do next? How can we turn this around? Because everything you guys have said is exactly what we're looking at and what we're going to be seeing in the next few weeks, and who knows how long, who knows for how long, with a whole other scary element to that. So, you know, a lot of food for thought here. I know that you got to go, but I do want to say something, because the whole idea of movies about slavery, you know, the slavery movies have changed a little bit. And when we first started seeing, especially like starting with like, say, 12 Years a Slave and all of that, I know a lot of my colleagues and a lot of African-American, Black folks, people of color thought, okay, well, I don't really want to see this because all this is pornography for white people. It gives them opportunity to see us being beat and lynched and all of that. So no, I'm not looking at it. How would you address that? And what would you say to the audiences out there who might feel that way?
Well, I'm going to let Gerard speak mostly to this, but for us, what we've discussed is that you never hear anyone say, "Oh, another Holocaust movie."
Right.
And it's America, the American education system has done us a disservice. We don't know our past. So it's unfortunately that we have to have movies like this to educate. But
look, as a Black American, I refuse to serve as a co-conspirator in the erasure of our shared history. I'm here to tell the truth. And I think that Black folk, I get it, because I would never, if you would have told me 10 years ago that I would be making my first film about, enslaved people, American slavery, I would have said that you're smoking crack. There's no way. I shared the same sentiment as so many of my brethren within the Black community, that this is not something that we need to see. We need to see different images of Black people reflected back to ourselves. But at the same time, I think the recontextualization of American slavery and the seeding of this country's original sin encased within a modern context is a very effective way to catalyze a national dialogue around this issue. And I think that, yes, I want to paint a different world, and a world that is more accommodating and equitable for me as a Black person. But that doesn't happen by me sugarcoating and whitewashing the truth of the past. So we're going to need to confront that and put the mirror up to this country and swallow that jagged little pill, so that we can get away from the sedative and stop sleepwalking before we sleepwalk off a cliff. We need to confront the truth of the thing.
So well said, and everybody really should see this film, Antebellum. I mean, it's brilliant, it's frightening, it's hard to watch, but boy, it's a must. It's on my new must-see list that I'm letting everybody know that they've got to see it. So where can we find it? I mean, there was video on demand, or how can people find it?
Well, right now it's video on demand. I don't know, and that there's going to be an announcement in the next little while about where it's going.
it'll be on
one of the main streamers very soon.
Okay.
Right
We
now,
will,
video on demand.
Yeah.
On Apple
we
TV.
will,
Amazon.
we'll make sure that we push this out there and let people know that they have got to see, especially right now. I mean, if there's ever a time to see this film, like I said, it's one of the most poignant things I've seen in a very long time, and I see a lot of stuff.
We're honored. Thank you very much, and thank you for your support, and thank you for just having a conversation with us and talking about this. For us, even the conversation about where we are in America and Antebellum and all of it was really cathartic, and we appreciate it.
Absolutely. Are you working on something else just before we go?
Yeah.
We are. We're not shying away from controversial topics. Our next film is called Rapture, and it deals with the weaponization of organized religion. And we also have an HBO series called Inkwell.
Yeah, Rapture we signed with Lionsgate for our second movie as well. Pre-production is imminent. And Inkwell is about, just think Black surfers and the apocalypse. And that's
okay, because I was going to say, now I got to tell you, I'm a Martha's Vineyard girl. So I grew up, my entire life was spent on the Inkwell. So that's what I was thinking it was about. So
there's a place, I'm quite familiar with the Inkwell in Martha's Vineyard. There's also a place that white people, racist white people, called an area that Black people in Southern California were relegated to going to surf and to enjoy the beach. And it was called, also called the Inkwell, which is what this show was named for.
Okay, good. Can't wait to see. I mean, whatever you guys are putting out there, everybody needs to see it. Keep us posted, and we'll come back and do it again. And maybe next time we won't even have to be on Zoom because we will all be vaccinated, and we can.
We would love that. We can't wait to meet you in person.
Okay, thank you so much, guys. And thanks everybody for tuning in today. This is a conversation that you need to spread and tell people about. And we'll be here the next time. Everybody stay safe and have a great day. Thanks, guys.
Thank you.